Okay, this is a lesson on how to add irregular fractions. The prefix is ir, which means not. So these fractions are not regular. Mrs. Miller is calling them weirdos because they're heavy on top and they can't stay that way. So let's come down and look at our numerators are always going to be in red, and you know Mrs. Miller calls the numerators the cakes. Also, we could call the numerators the dividend, and the denominators, you know Mrs. Miller calls those the knives, which are used to cut the cakes. Also, denominators are called the divisors. The divisors are the cutters. All right, let's look at the problem now. We have 15 halves plus 12 halves, not pus. There's no pus in the cake. Stop that, Mrs. Miller. Okay, so 15 plus 12 equals 27. And we're adding halves, and the halves are not going to change. So 15 halves plus 12 halves equals 27 halves. All right, let's come down to the next step. Since this is a weirdo, we cannot leave it this way. This is another way to reduce a fraction. Okay, so you see the 2 underneath is stressing out a little bit because it's too small to hold up 27. So what's going to happen with this irregular fraction is it's going to have to fall down. Whoopsie daisy. And the knife is going to be set up to cut the cake on our division problem. So this 27 halves is the same as 27 divided by 2. So 2 goes into 2 once. And 2 times 1, or 1 times 2 is 2, and I subtracted and I didn't get a remainder. I didn't get anything down there. 2 minus 2 is 0, so I didn't even write down the 0. And then I brought down the 7, and 2 goes into 7 3 times, and 2 times 3 is 6, with a remainder of 1. I want you to notice that I wrote the remainder as a fraction. For those of you who remember when I taught you that, I've made sure to write that cake knife or the divisor in blue, because this is the knife or the divisor or the denominator, and I'm going to keep it down underneath where it belongs. That's where the knife will always go in a fraction. And the remainder, or the leftover cake down here, is going to be up here. You'll notice that we started out with halves and we ended up with leftovers that are halves. So our answer is 13 1/2. If you look here, 15 halves and 12 halves is the same as 13 1/2.